Hi everybody, as part of my homeschooling and Exodus studies, we've been researching the Tabernacle of Moses and how Israel was taught how to approach Alahim through the narrow gate and what it means for us today in Yahusha. I hope you enjoy. How do you build a house for Alahim? Not a cathedral, not a temple carved into a mountainside. A tent, a portable tent designed to be assembled, disassembled, and carried across a desert by hand. No blueprints on paper, no power tools, no factory-cut lumber, just 600,000 former slaves standing in the wilderness with Egyptian gold and wood from desert trees. And here's the part that defies logic. This portable tent had to contain the actual presence of the creator of the universe. A presence so radioactively set apart and so dangerous that approaching it wrongly meant instant death. This is the Tabernacle, the Mishkan, Yahuah Alahim's portable dwelling place. And what they built in that desert 3,400 years ago still baffles engineers today. The year was approximately 1450 BC. 14 months had passed since the night of Passover, since the Red Sea parted and Pharaoh's army drowned in the returning waters. Israel was free, but freedom raised a question no one had considered. Alahim had delivered them with 10 plagues. He had walked with them as a pillar of cloud by day and fire by night. But how does an infinite, perfect Alahim stay with a finite, corrupt people? How does the creator of galaxies travel with a nation of nomads? How could he come close and not frackle them up? The answer came from Alahim himself, recorded in the book of Exodus. Let them make me a sanctuary that I may dwell among them. This was not a human idea. Alahim initiated this project. And when Moses climbed Mount Sinai, he didn't just receive the 10 Commandments, he spent 40 days receiving detailed construction blueprints of the heavenly pattern. Every measurement, every material, every color, every technique. The instruction was absolute. Make it exactly according to the pattern shown to you on the mountain. Moses didn't design this. He downloaded it straight from the mind of Yahuah Alahim. But a blueprint means nothing without builders, so Alahim handpicked 2 men by name. The first was Bezalel from the tribe of Judah. Scripture says he was filled with the spirit of Alahim in wisdom, understanding, knowledge, and all craftsmanship. He was the master of metalwork, woodwork, and stone cutting. The second was Oholiab from the tribe of Dan, an expert in textiles, embroidery, and engraving. Alongside them worked hundreds of wise-hearted men and women, skilled volunteers who gave their time and talent, and the materials, the gold and silver and bronze, had been ripped from Egypt as a back payment for 400 years of slavery. The women donated their bronze mirrors. The people gave so generously that Moses had to command them to stop donating. So Alahim had given the vision. He had appointed the workers. He had provided the resources. But one question hung over the project like the desert sun. Could human hands actually build a dwelling place for the Almighty? And if they succeeded, would he actually show up? Before the curtains, before the gold furnishings, before the set-apart objects, someone had to solve an engineering problem that shouldn't have been solvable. How do you build a rigid structure 45 feet long, 15 feet wide, and 15 feet tall that can be disassembled by hand, carried by Levites across the wilderness, and reassembled without power tools over and over again for 40 years? The solution was a modular frame system unlike anything the ancient world had seen. The foundation of this frame was 48 boards cut from acacia wood. Acacia was the only tree stubborn enough to grow in the Sinai desert. Dense grain, twisted fibers, virtually rot-proof. Each board stood 10 cubits tall, roughly 15 feet, and 1.5 cubits wide, about 27 inches. And every single board was completely overlaid with gold. 20 boards formed the south wall, 20 more formed the north. 8 boards, including 2 special corner pieces, formed the back wall on the west. The east side remained open as the entrance, but here is where the engineering becomes remarkable. At the bottom of each board were 2 projections, called tenons, and each tenon fit precisely into a socket made of solid silver, 100 sockets in total. Each socket weighed 1 talent, 75 pounds of pure silver. Do the math. That's 7,500 pounds of silver just for the foundation. Nearly 4 tons. Why so much weight at the bottom? Physics. All that mass concentrated at the ground level created a low center of gravity when desert winds screamed across the camp. Those 15 feet boards didn't budge. They couldn't. The weight held them fast. But the genius didn't stop there. 5 horizontal bars ran across each wall, threaded through the gold rings, attached to the boards. 4 of these bars were visible from the outside, but the 5th bar, called the middle bar, ran through the center of the boards themselves. Inside the wood, an invisible spine holding everything together. You couldn't see it from the outside, but without it, the walls would have buckled. Imagine the sound, the heavy thud of silver meeting sand, the scrape of gold-plated wood sliding into sockets, 48 boards rising from the desert floor like golden walls, materializing from nothing. And here's what most people miss. Those silver sockets came from the census ransom money. Every Israelite man had paid a half shekel to redeem his life. That silver was melted down and cast into the foundation. The entire structure literally stood on redemption. No board touched the ground directly. Every piece rested on the price paid for human beings. The skeleton was up. 48 golden boards standing on silver feet, locked together by hidden bars. But bones needed skin. And what came next would transform this gleaming frame into something that looked from the outside almost ordinary. The tabernacle didn't have one roof. It had 4 layered on top of each other, like skin over muscle over bone. Each layer served a physical purpose, but each layer also told a story. The innermost layer was the most beautiful thing in the entire structure. 10 curtains of fine twisted linen, woven with threads of blue, purple, and scarlet against brilliant white. But the linen wasn't just colored. It was embroidered. Cherubim, angelic figures, were stitched into the fabric by the hands of master craftsmen. This was the ceiling the priests saw when they looked up. Angels woven into fabric. Heaven stretched overhead. The 10 curtains were joined together by 50 golden clasps, forming one continuous canopy. The second layer was goat hair. 11 curtains, slightly longer than the first layer, joined by bronze clasps instead of gold. We're moving outward now, away from the glorious theme. Goat hair seemed rough and primitive compared to embroidered linen, but it was brilliantly practical. When goat hair gets wet, the fibers swell and seal, making it waterproof. When it dries, the fibers relax and breathe. Natural climate control. The Bedouins still use this material today. The third layer was ram skins dyed deep red. No dimensions given in scripture. It was fitted over the goat hair as insulation and additional waterproofing. Red, the color of blood, the color of sacrifice. Hidden beneath the outer layer, but present, always present. The fourth and final layer was the skin of the Takash, most likely the sea cow or dugong from the Red Sea. Tough, weather-resistant, and a dull grey-brown that blended into the desert landscape. Here is the profound contrast from outside the camp. The tabernacle looked like just another tent, weathered hide stretch over a frame. Nothing special, nothing remarkable. You could walk past it and never guess what waited within. Kind of like each of us. But step inside, gold everywhere. Walls of gold, angels overhead. Light dancing on polished metal. The glory esteem was hidden. You had to enter to see it. Feel the weight of those goat hair curtains being hoisted overhead. Hear the rustle of fine linen settling into place. Smell the tanned leather, the lanolin still clinging to the wool. From the outside, a tent. From the inside, a throne room. The structure was complete, frame and covering bones and skin. But a house isn't a home until it's furnished. And before anyone could step inside Alahim's house, they had to pass through a courtyard. A courtyard that smelled like blood. Before you could enter the tabernacle, you had to enter the courtyard, and the courtyard wasn't a garden. It was a slaughterhouse. The space was enormous by ancient standards. 100 cubits long, 50 cubits wide. Roughly 150 feet by 75 feet. A fence of white linen curtains, 7.5 feet tall, enclosed the entire area, hung on 60 bronze pillars, with silver tops. The white linen blazed in the desert sun, pure, clean, blinding, and there was only one way through it, a single gate on the east side, 30 feet wide, marked by an embroidered curtain of blue, purple, scarlet, and white. One way in, no back doors, no side entrances. You came through the narrow gate, or you didn't come at all. The moment you stepped through that doorway, you faced the brazen altar. It was massive, 7.5 feet square, 4.5 feet tall. Acacia wood covered entirely in bronze. 4 horns jutted from its corners. A bronze grating sat inside holding the sacrifices, while ash fell to the chamber below. This is where animals died every single day. Lambs, bulls, goats. Blood poured out on the horns. Fat sizzled on the grate. Smoke rose constantly toward heaven. The message was impossible to miss. You cannot approach Alahim without a blood sacrifice. Something has to die. The life is in the blood. Past the altar stood the brazen lava, a large basin filled with water positioned between the altar and the tabernacle entrance. And here's a detail that stops us in our tracks. The lava was made entirely from the bronze mirrors donated by the woman who served at the entrance of the tent of meeting. Think about that. Mirrors, instruments of vanity, ego tools for examining your own face, the flesh, were melted down and reformed into an instrument of cleansing. The woman traded seeing themselves for the priest's purity. The priests were commanded to wash their hands and feet at this lava before entering the set-apart place. The instruction was absolute: wash or die. Breathe in the air of that courtyard, the metallic tang of blood, the smoke of burning fat, the sizzle of flesh meeting flame. This isn't beautiful, this is brutal. This is the cost of coming close to a perfectly divine and set-apart Alahim. sacrifice, then cleansing. Then and only then could you approach the door. You've passed the altar, blood has been shed. You've washed at the lava, your hands are clean and your garments must be white. Now ahead of you, 5 pillars covered in gold frame, an embroidered curtain rippling in the desert wind. Beyond that curtain lies the set-apart place, and only priests may enter. 5 pillars of acacia wood covered in gold mark the entrance. But notice something subtle. These pillars stand on bronze sockets, not silver. A transition point. You're leaving the courtyard of bronze and stepping into the dwelling of gold. Push past the embroidered screen and step inside. The temperature drops, the sound of the camp, the animals, the children, the commerce, all of it disappears. There are no windows here, no natural light. The only illumination comes from 7 flames, burning on solid gold. The room stretches 30 feet long, 15 feet wide, and 15 feet high. Gold-covered walls surround you on every side, and overhead, the linen ceiling, with its embroidered cherubim, make you feel as if heaven itself is watching. To your left, on the south side, stands the golden lampstand, the menorah, 1 talent of pure gold, 75 pounds, hammered from a single piece of metal, not cast in a mold, not assembled from parts, but beaten into shape by human hands. Guided by divine design, a central shaft rises with 6 branches, extending from it, 3 on each side, 7 lamps in total. Each branch is decorated with almond blossoms, buds, and flowers. The lamps burn pure, beaten olive oil, and they were never allowed to go out. Tended every morning, lit every evening. This is the only light source in the room. 7 flames dancing, reflecting off golden walls, casting flickering shadows across the space. To your right, on the north side, stands the table of showbread, acacia wood covering in gold with a decorative molding around the edge. 12 loaves of bread rest on its surface at all times, 1 loaf for each tribe of Israel. Every Sabbath, the priests replace the old bread with fresh loaves and eat what has been removed. This is the bread of the presence, literally the face bread of all of Israel, represented before Alahim's face every single day. Directly ahead, positioned at the center of the room, just before the great veil, stands the golden altar of incense, the smallest of the altars, just 18 inches square and 3 feet tall. Acacia wood overlaid with gold, with 4 golden horns at its corners. Every morning and every evening, the priest burns a special incense on this altar. The recipe is sacred, its formula given by Alahim himself, and forbidden for any other use. The smoke rises, drifts forward to the massive curtain ahead, and curls under its edges toward the presence but beyond. Stand there for a moment. Gold everywhere, walls, lampstand, table of bread, incense altar, 7 flames casting shadows that dance and flicker. The smell of incense thick in the still air. And ahead of you, a curtain, massive, heavy, embroidered with cherubim in blue, purple, and scarlet. Guardian angels, divine messengers, woven into fabric, blocking the way forward. Beyond that curtain is the most dangerous room on earth, and you are not permitted to go in it for 364 days a year. This is as far as anyone went. Even the high priest stopped here. But once a year, just once, 1 man would gather his courage, take blood in his hands, fill the room with incense smoke, and push past that curtain into the presence of the Almighty Alahim, Yahuah. what waited behind the veil. The veil was the final barrier, the last line between humanity and divinity, like an interdimensional portal, a stargate between worlds. It was made of same material as the inner ceiling, blue, purple, scarlet, threads woven into fine white linen, with cherubim embroidered across its surface, woven malachim, guardian sentinels, blocking the way, just as cherubim had guarded the entrance to Eden's tree of life after the fall. The veil hung from 4 pillars, covered in gold. But notice this, these pillars stand on silver sockets, not bronze like the entrance to the set-apart place. Silver, the metal of redemption from the silver coins after the Exodus. The closer you get to Alahim's presence, the more precious the foundation is. Beyond the veil lies a perfect cube, 10 cubits by 10 cubits by 10 cubits, 15 feet in every direction, and it's utterly dark, pitch black. No lampstand here, no windows, no torches, no source of light at all except the glory, esteem of Alahim himself. Inside this darkness sits one piece of furniture, the Ark of the Covenant, a chest of acacia wood covered in gold inside and out, 2.5 cubits long, 1.5 cubits wide, 1.5 cubits tall, gold molding around its rim, 4 gold rings at the corners through which gold-covered poles are inserted, poles that are never removed because the ark must always be ready to move. Inside the ark rest the stone tablets of the covenant, the Torah law that Israel broke, a golden jar of manna, the provision that Israel rejected, and later Aaron's rod that budded, after Israel challenged the divine authority of leadership given to them. Everything inside that golden chest of covenant witness represented human failure. Broken commands rejected favor and mercy, questioned leadership, all of it sealed away under the lid. But the lid is no ordinary cover. It is the mercy seat, solid gold, not gold plated over wood like everything else. Pure gold beaten into shape, and rising from each end, 2 cherubim hammered from the same single piece, facing each other, their wings stretched upward and inward until the tips touch overhead. Their faces look down, always down, gazing at the space between them, that space on the golden lid between those 2 angels. That was the place, the one place in the entire universe where Yahuah Alahim promised to meet with Moses, where his voice would speak, where his presence would dwell. This was his throne on earth, the intersection of heaven and earth. No one decorated this room, no one cleaned it, no one entered it, except 1 day a year, and even then only the high priest, and only with blood in one hand and incense in the other. The smoke would fill the space, first hiding the mercy seat, so the priest wouldn't see Alahim's glorious steam directly and die, for no one could see Alahim's face and live. Then he would sprinkle blood on the lid on top of the broken Torah law, covering human failure with evidence of blood sacrifice. There was no furniture to dust, no lamps to trim, just the ark, just the cherubim, just the darkness, and Alahim's presence. This was the room where heaven touched earth, where the creator of galaxies compressed his glory esteem into a space the size of a small bedroom, and between 2 golden cherubim, on a throne made by human hands, Alahim sat, waiting for the 1 day a year when blood would cover sin and a priest would survive his presence. The The framework was built. The coverings were stretched. The furniture was placed. The courtyard was enclosed. Every socket, every bar, every curtain, everything was in position. The tabernacle was complete, but one question remained. Would he come? The first day of the first month of the second year, 14 months since the night death had passed over Egypt, 1 year since the people stood trembling at the base of Sinai, while thunder rolled and the mountain burned. And now, finally, the work was finished. Moses himself performed the final assembling of the tabernacle. Not the builders, not the priests. No, Moses, the man who had received the vision, who put the last pieces into place. He placed the silver sockets in the sand, erected the golden boards, inserted the bars to lock them together. He spread the 4 coverings over the frame, the embroidered linen, the goat hair, the red ram skin, the weathered hide. He carried the stone tablets and placed them inside the ark, set the carrying poles through the rings, laid the mercy seat on top. Then he brought the ark into the most set-apart place and hung the veil to conceal it. He positioned the golden table of showbread on the north side and arranged it. He set the lampstand on the south side and lit its flames. He placed the golden altar of incense before the veil and burned the sacred incense. He hung the screen at the entrance to the set-apart place. He set the brazen altar before the narrow gate and made the first offerings. He placed the brazen laver between the altar and the entrance and filled it with water. He erected the linen fence around the courtyard. He hung the gate, and Moses finished the work. He stepped back, surveyed what lay before him, every detail exactly as Alahim commanded, not a cubit off, not a color wrong, not a socket misplaced. The work of his hands, the work of hundreds of willing hearts, it stood complete. But completion was never the goal. Habitation was the goal. Would Alahim accept it? And then it happened. A cloud. And not just any cloud, the cloud. The pillar that had led them out of Egypt, that had stood between them and the Pharaoh's chariots at the sea. The cloud that had hovered over Sinai while the mountain shook, it began to move. It descended from the sky slowly, deliberately, and covered the tent of meeting. And the glorious steam of Yahuah, the Shekinah, the visible, tangible, radiant presence of the living Alahim filled the tabernacle. Moses tried to enter. He couldn't. Not because the door was blocked, not because someone stopped him, but because the weight of glory esteem was too heavy. Too present, too real to push through. This was the same Moses who had climbed Sinai, who had seen the burning tree that wasn't consumed, who had stood in the cleft of the rock while Alahim's goodness passed by, who had spoken with Alahim, the Almighty Yahuah, face to face. Even he could not enter. This wasn't a vision. This wasn't Alahim appearing briefly and vanishing. This wasn't Alahim appearing briefly and vanishing. This wasn't a theophany or a dream. This was Alahim moving in. They had followed his blueprint. They had built him a house, and now he was home. He was claiming back territory in that little cube. He had taken back a small portion of his creation. The impossible had happened. A tent made of desert wood and animal skins and melted Egyptian gold had become the dwelling place of the one who spoke the universe into existence. Heaven had touched earth, and the cloud would remain over the tabernacle day by day, fire glowing within it by night, a visible sign that Alahim was present. For the next 4 years, wherever that cloud moved, Israel followed, and wherever it stopped, they made camp. The glory esteem had come, and earth would never be the same. The tabernacle was not just a tent, it was a declaration, a statement that the Alahim of infinite space wanted to live not in some distant heaven, but in the center of the camp, close intimacy with his people, near enough to hear and to love them. Every detail was intentional. The altar of blood said, a price must be paid for eternal life. The labor required says, purity is required for intimacy. The veil said, my perfect, powerful presence is dangerous. But the mercy seat with its 2 cherubim looking down at the place where blood would be sprinkled, the mercy seat said, come anyway. There's a way through the narrow gate, through the blood sacrifice, the cleansing of spirit and fire immersion. They built it with their hands, but he filled it with his presence. Human craftsmanship, divine inhabitation. And for the next 400 years, wherever Israel went, Yahuah Alahim went with them, dwelling in a tent, traveling with his people, one board and silver socket at a time. Until the day that Alahim left his throne in heaven to transform this blueprint into a living human reality, coming as flesh and blood man, literally Alahim, tabernacled among us, walking, talking, healing, loving. His name is Yahusha, he is Alahim the Lamb, and he lives inside those who have entered in at the narrow gate vein for deliverance and eternal life. Thank you for watching, brothers and sisters. I hope you found that as interesting and powerful as I did, because of how important the tabernacle and the ark was in Exodus.
What do you think going through that?
It's crazy how the tabernacle was built.
Why?
Because of how much it took.
About every detail.
How they got all that right.
If they didn't get it right, what would happen?
It wouldn't be perfect enough and he wouldn't dwell in it.
What would happen to the high priest if he didn't get it right?
What do you mean he didn't get it right? He didn't go in there.
You went into the ark on one day of the year. What would happen if he didn't get it right?
He'd die.
Yeah. Dangerous, isn't it?
Yeah.
I kept dreaming of a world I thought I'd never see. And then, one day, I got in.